To the speech in just a minute. Let's get some quick snap reaction first from Pete Hegseth, who's been watching along with us. Pete, he went through every issue of success, every issue of failure as it relates to the Biden administration, how this country has changed so dramatically in the last 2 years. I just got an early copy of the text just now, and I'm looking at it. We'll go back in a minute when he has a pretty important close. But your thoughts so far?
Well, Sean, nothing like the original. He went back to the themes that put him in the White House, from fair trade to borders to ending nonsense foreign wars to saying we, the people, have been ignored by Washington, D.C. It's a forward-looking speech that recognizing the disaster of the last 2 years. He said, as president, I delivered for you where other presidents have not. This looks like Trump in as good a form as you've ever seen him, sticking to the issues that matter to his voters, making the case to Republican primary voters that he's the guy to continue to be the standard bearer as the original that remade the party. There will be others, many of which leverage their association with Trump to get where they are, who will try to be like Trump. There's only one original who got to the White House and fought. And I think if he stays on message the way he did tonight, he's got a formidable case to make to a Republican electorate.
Governor Huckabee, we will lift up the working men and women. We will restore the fabric of this great nation. We declare it does not have to be this way. America's comeback starts right now. I kept my promises. We are now a nation in decline, and Americans are suffering pain, hardship, anxiety, despair. And, you know, America has now become mocked, derided, and brought to its knees. Could you have imagined all this happening in 2 short years? Because I frankly couldn't.
Sean, the construct of the speech is pitch perfect. If he keeps on like this tonight, he is unbeatable in 2024. Nobody can touch him. Not a Republican, not a Democrat. He stayed on message. One of the key things he said, this is not my campaign, this is our campaign. He has made it about the American people. He's reminded them that the reason they voted for him once and most of us twice was because he was fighting for us. And he made the comment, this is not about critics and complainers. He's looking forward. I'm telling you, this was an absolutely brilliant speech, the best I've heard him give in a long time. And he stays on this message. I agree with Pete. He stays and keeps it between the ditches. And this focus, he's unbeatable.
You know, I think you might be able to make the case, Pete Hegseth, you know, all of his policies, and he went through a list of all of them, and he talked about inflation non-existent. He talked about secure borders. He talked about his defeat of the caliphate. He talked about energy independence. He talked about how peace through strength worked, and how he kept his promises, as I said. You know, then he compared it to higher gas prices, record high inflation, surrendering energy independence, our southern borders. He called it an invasion, and along with it, fentanyl and opioids, and what a failure it's been. The failure in Afghanistan, the failure in Ukraine. All of these things, I know people might, you know, I've had many people over the years, Pete, say, you know, the policies are perfect. You know, does he have to fight that much? And, you know, and send out these tweets and all. I'm sure you've gotten the same questions, too. And I'm like thinking, well, if you were lied about for 3 years about Russia, you might be a little defensive and a little combative also.
Well, Sean, he had to fight to get just on the debate stage on the Republican side, to be the nominee. It was always a fight. And then from there, he was lied about. So he's had to be a fighter. He is the preeminent fighter for freedom, for America first of our generation. Absolutely no doubt about it. Then once he got there, to your point, Sean, he delivered on every prerogative any conservative Republican or America first supporter would have wanted. He said he would do it, and then he did it, from the Supreme Court to the ISIS caliphate to energy dominance to taxes across the board. He was committed to it. He took the slings and arrows. They're even coming out tonight from media outlets. Right now, the headlines are pre-written about who Donald Trump is. He's taken those arrows on behalf of everyone else and delivered. If he reminds voters of that, stays disciplined on those tops, it makes it about us, about we the people, about they're coming after you, I'm just standing in the way. Those lines that he's made iconic. People will be reminded, despite the noise, of how good their life was because of the policies of Donald Trump, and pull the lever for him. It's not going to be easy to beat this guy. I agree with Governor Huckabee. He's at the top of his game, having had the results, making the case, and you can be riding a wave or have other arguments. The original is a flavor in and of itself, and you're seeing that tonight from Donald Trump.
Let me bring in Congressman Jim Jordan and Monica Crowley. Jim, you've always been a champion, a big supporter of Donald Trump. When you look at this Donald Trump tonight, very serious, very powerful speech. This is Donald Trump, and it's game time for him.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I think Pete and the governor had it exactly right. This is our campaign. That is the key line, Sean. Sean, I think of the great coaches. The great coaches are the ones where their athletes know that coach puts their athletes' interests first. That is exactly what President Trump has done for the American people. When you've been to these rallies, these huge rallies, and President Trump has a great line. He says, "The left comes after me because I'm fighting for you." His audience knows that. His supporters know that. There is a bond. There is a relationship that forms. And so that very first line, which is America's comeback starts today, that is what this is about. And that is why so many people are attracted to this guy and how he fights for this country, because they know he puts their interests first, their family's interests first, and America's interests first. And that is what matters more than anything, especially now with what we've seen from Joe Biden and the left.
And by the way, what an appropriate day. Congratulations, Jim Jordan. You are now officially going to be investigating a lot of things that have gone under the radar for the last number of years. Looking time for all of that. Monica Crowley, let's get your thoughts before we go back to the president.
Yeah, isn't it remarkable, Sean and Jim, that on the same night President Trump files and announces for president, the Republicans secured the majority in the House of Representatives. Yeah. So, look, President Trump has taken a severe pounding over the last 7 years. I've never seen anything like it. It is a miracle that the man is still standing. And he's certainly taken a pounding over the last week or so after the midterms. But this man has always put the forgotten man and woman first. When he said that line tonight about this is not my campaign, this is our campaign altogether, it reminded me back in 2016 when Mrs. Clinton had a slogan that said, "I'm with her," and Trump turned around and said, "I'm with you." And that kind of fighting spirit for the American people, and it's not just a campaign promise anymore. He has a long track record of being president, actually delivering for the forgotten man and woman. That's the kind of thing he is resurrecting tonight. He has turned the page on 2020. This was a forward-looking address based on policy and principle and hope for delivering America out of this historic catastrophe known as the Biden presidency.
Let's get some quick commentary from our friend Joe Concha and Leo 2.0 Terrell. Leo, I don't think there's a bigger fan in the country of Donald Trump than you. I'm watching this president at this hour, and I'm seeing a guy that looks like he is dead on focus, that this is real.
Hey, you know, Sean, on your program 2 years ago, I came out on your program and told you my support for President Trump. First time I ever voted for a Republican. Why? You can see it tonight. He cares. He cares about the American people, and the American people resonate towards Trump. This is what he has that the other candidates will never obtain. The ability to draw in the crowd because they trust him, and he has a record to run on. This is a guy who is very comfortable in front of the American people because they trust him. And I'll tell you right now, I'm more determined than ever before. On your program 2 years ago, more now, I'm a big Trump supporter because he cares about America. As a civil rights attorney, I care, and that's why I'm supporting Trump again.
You know, one thing that I would argue, Joe Concha, the president has made his case about issues involving elections and fraud, et cetera. No talk of that tonight. He has seemed to have evolved into he would like to see states evolve paper ballots like Canada and like France and like Great Britain. And you have partisan observers watch the vote count and watch the voting. And, you know, I think that is probably a big step in many people's minds that they said, OK, we've heard that point. Now it's about the future because elections are about the future.
That's correct. The tone was the right one here, Sean, no question. It felt more like a State of the Union address and less like a rally speech. Donald Trump tonight largely stuck to the issues, all the crises that are ailing this country, and it was disciplined. He was largely positive in terms of his vision. Sure, he took a couple shots at Joe Biden, but it was benign stuff in Trump terms. And he reminded those watching of his various accomplishments as president. He outlined a bold contrast with what the Biden administration had done and how it's performed in terms of inflation, crime, the border, energy independence, foreign policy, and compared it to where things were when he was president. It was also about, as you said, what he didn't say. No talk about stolen elections or 2020. He didn't attack or insult any of his potential opponents in the Republican primary, whether that be Governor Ron DeSantis, Florida, Governor Glenn Youngkin, Virginia. That is smart. So this felt more like an address to the joint session of Congress. It sounded presidential, and I think it probably surprised more than a few folks that he went about it this way. If he continues to do this and sticks to the issues, it's going to be a very interesting primary and general election. 721 days away, Sean. I looked it up before we came on, until Election Day 2024.
You know, Leo, if Donald Trump, I would argue his wheelhouse is when he is talking about the forgotten men and women in this country. And the forgotten men and women in this country have suffered under the Biden New Green Deal socialist agenda. And that is the message, frankly, that the entire Republican Party needs to take. I'm going to go back to the speech, though. Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey.